Welcome, everyone. We have Dr. Ange Wellman with us today as our guest speaker. Before we jump in, welcome to ChamberAM, of course, your Peterborough Chamber of Commerce. Every month we host ChamberAM for you to get connected. It's all virtual. But in a couple months, I have a gut feeling we could all be together at the Edison. I know, I'm pretty excited. So we probably just have a couple more of these under our belts, but I gotta say, this one's still my favorite. Happy to be here, I love it. Now is about the time. Actually, before I introduce our guest speaker, Joel, you were at a round table. Do you have any policy nuggets you want to throw at us while I'm putting you on the spot this morning?
Sure, I can throw a few highlights out there. Yeah, we had a roundtable meeting with the Minister of Small Business yesterday, and going over with the provincial minister and going over the loan program or the grant program that they have. There's been quite a few issues. Either people got their money easily, or they really didn't and probably don't have it yet and haven't been able to figure out their status with it. So it was a good opportunity. It wasn't just Chambers on the call. We had a number of businesses we had one from ours, as well as businesses from quite a few other chambers, just to express to the minister the various challenges that they've had with that. And then the other item that we've been pushing right now is our responsible business protocol. So we had a meeting with the Premier's office last week to try and get some more momentum behind that as well. We'll see where all of it leads, but we've also put a letter writing campaign in from Chambers across Ontario, also pushing that same protocol, and that's just calling for more equality in how the reopening process is going. If businesses are able to follow proper health and safety protocols, if it's safe for one type of business to open, we're saying that they should all have the same capacity limits and the same ability to open. And the idea that, you know, if as long as people have a way to legally and safely open, we're going to have a lot more compliance, and I think we're going to have not just a healthier economy, but a healthier province. So those are the main items that we have going on right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Joel. And you'll note that the Chamber was storytelling at that round table by bringing some of our local businesses to the table to share our perspective on what we got going on in our wonderful community. Speaking of wonderful communities, newcomers, wonderful humans, Dr. Ange Wellman from the Wellman Clinic joins us today. She's got a spicy personality, a passion for wellness. We laughed so hard on that live at the breakfast table interview. Excellent. Dr. Ange Wellman, thank you so much for joining us today, my friend.
Thank you, Tiffany. I don't know that I've been referred to as spicy. I like it.
Definitely spicy. So, Ange, you've got a video that we're going to play today. You'll let me know when you want to play that. And I'm just going to turn the table over to you. Share a bit about your story, a bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, it's nice to see everybody, and I see some familiar faces, and it's nice to see some new faces. I will be vulnerable for a second and share that I am a little bit nervous. And so I'm in a new office space, moved in December. And now that it is warm, we have discovered that the air conditioning doesn't work. So it is extremely hot in here right now. I don't have any windows in my office that open. So I'm nervous and very hot. So it's making me feel very sleepy, actually. So it's just, you know, a perfect combination to be able to dig into those nerves and persevere. Anyway, Rachel, we could have used your services, I guess, to tell my landlord that. So yeah, you know, I've given a few talks over the last, I guess maybe the last year, and I think my style is very much a wing it kind of approach, and I have definitely found it harder to talk about what I do, because chiropractic is a very misunderstood profession, and so oftentimes I like kind of talk around what I do. But today I thought that I would speak a bit more directly to what it is that I've devoted my life to, And I thought I would kind of just speak a bit to who I am and just how I got here, and because I think that I haven't really told my story very much. I've been in practice now for 17 years, which is like crazy because like I still feel like I'm 23. But I'm not. The time is going very quick. But I've had a pretty interesting journey, and I don't think I'm ready to talk about all of it yet, but definitely have learned some lessons the hard way. And so anyway, I thought it would just maybe be of interest just to hear a little bit about that. So I decided to become a chiropractor in 1999. And I had gone to university. I went to 4 different universities in 4 years because I grew up in Pickering, and I was very much like, as soon as I can leave Pickering, I'm gonna leave and sow my oats, as Tiffany and I laughed about, because that's such a weird thing to say, but it was out of my mouth before I realized. Anyway, so I started out in Halifax at Dalhousie University, and then I ended up going to school in France for a year in my second year. And really, I actually wanted to go to BC. And my parents were like, no, you're going to be homesick, and BC's too far. And so we landed on Halifax being okay. And then in my second year, I was like determined I had to have this opportunity in France, and it was in Nice, France, and it was through Laurentian University, and like really it was a year studying the art of drinking cheap wine, but which I got very good at, not as good at French, but anyway, it was a wonderful opportunity, and after that it was like, well, BC's not really too far anymore, so I'm going to head out there. So I ended up in a small community in BC my third year, Kamloops, and I went to this school called at the time it was called the University College of the Caribou. So that has been just great ammunition for my brother over the years, because it's a ridiculous name, and it's now called the Thompson Rivers University. So they changed it. But it was a great transitional year for me because I hadn't focused as much on my studies. And so I was in a very small program. And that's when I started to shift gears and go into human kinetics. And then after that year, I went down to UBC and graduated in '99 with a Bachelor of Human Kinetics and with a specialization in health promotion. So I knew I wanted to do something more, as I said in the other interview. And so anyway, I came home at the end of '99 because I was that person that was like convinced that Y2K was a thing. And like, I wanted to be close to my family when the world ended. So I moved home at Christmas of '99, and also to get ready for chiropractic college, because it was actually pretty hard to get into chiropractic college. And I think that's where some of the misinformation starts is, we get called a lot of different names as chiropractors. And the year I applied to chiropractic college, there were 1,000 applicants, and there were 125 spots. And a lot of people were applying for the second and even third time. And so I came home to really prepare for that. And I mentored with a chiropractor in Pickering. And so I was very lucky, and I got in. And so that started in 2000. So I spent 4 years in Toronto at the Canadian Chiropractic College there. And it was a pretty intense 4 years. The first couple of years of chiropractic college are pretty similar to a medical school program. And then we start to branch off and specialize in the spine. And I was the first group to go through their problem-based learning at the time. Back then was when that whole model of education was starting. And that was particularly intense because it was a model where every 3 weeks we were doing exams. And so it was grueling. But chiropractors work hard and play hard. So we certainly had fun, and I was known for my karaoke skills at the Originals pub on Bayview. And so, it was a great experience. And at the time that we were going through, that I was going through chiropractic college, there was actually an inquest going on, the Lana Dale Lewis trial about around chiropractors and causing strokes. So it was very interesting to be working so hard and being so in it academically, and then listening to the media talk about the horrible humans that we are and what we do to people. And so I really came out at the end of those 4 years with, I would say, like close to zero confidence in my abilities, because, there was a lot of tension around it, and a lot of questioning. And even within the school, there were professors who, I would say that a lot of the professors there maybe didn't do as well in practice. And so then they were supplementing income by teaching. And so there were definitely ones that were nervous, and they weren't promoting the neck adjustment and learning that. And so just to kind of bring some clarity to that, what the research shows is that the risk of stroke in a chiropractor's office is the equivalent to the risk of stroke in a medical doctor's office. And the reason for that is that the person is likely in the process of having a stroke when they come to the chiropractor. So they're having neck pain, headaches, they may have the beginning of numbness, and so they're presenting with stroke symptoms. So that's just a little bit of an aside. So I came out with no confidence, and we did not have a single business course in the 4-year program. We did have a clinical year. The 4th year was a clinical year, and we were expected to treat a certain number of patients. And I have never been one to take the easy road. And so I chose a clinic in the middle of nowhere. It was in the Pickle Barrel Plaza at Leslie and Shepherd, I think. And my peers chose clinics. There were a couple of clinics, Sherbrooke and Anishinaabe clinics, that were, in hindsight, I'm like, why didn't I go there? Because they had like such fascinating cases, a lot of HIV patients. But like, you just had to show up, and like, there were just people there. Whereas I actually had to find my patients, and I had a hard time. I had a really hard time. So that kind of added to my lack of confidence. I didn't know anybody in the neighborhood. And it's really cool nowadays with social media, because back then there was no social media. And so I see chiropractors coming out now, and like, they have full social media accounts, and like, they haven't even passed their board exams yet, and they're promoting chiropractic. So it's really cool to see, but that's not what it was like back then. So knew nothing about marketing. And so anyway, come out, and I had $150,000 debt from all my bopping around, because I went to all these universities. And when I went to chiropractic college, my parents were still in Pickering, and they were like, you should live with us. And I was like, live with you? Like, are you crazy? Like, I'm living in Pickering and commuting to Toronto. In hindsight, I probably should have lived with them, because I just took on debt, and the banks were very willing to give it to us. And so here I was, $150,000 in debt, zero confidence, on the eve of my 30th birthday. And my parents were now like, you should move home and pay off that debt. And I was like, I'm almost 30. Like, I can't live at home, and I'm single, and it's Pickering. Like, what is this future that you are planning for me? Like, so I got into gear and found myself a job in Australia. And so I connected with these 2 Canadian chiropractors, a husband and wife, who were in Brisbane, and they were they were going to move across country to Perth to help open a chiropractic school, and they were looking for someone to take over their practice. So I thought, oh, I just saw Australia. I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to do this. So I got myself the job, had my 30th birthday party, and then at which I got a whole bunch of comments, and I got a book about how like the 10 most dangerous animals in the world are in Australia. And so I set off like with a mix of like excitement and trepidation because I was 30 and I'd obviously lived, in various places around the world, but I had never really quite gotten that far. And people, my friends were like, well, you're just going to meet a guy and like get married and never come back. And so like those comments like created a bit of a shift in me before I even left, where I was like, oh, I'm not going to let that happen. And so as I think I kind of mentioned in the interview with Tiffany, or maybe it was in the business summit. I don't know. It's all blurring together. Anyway, at the time I was a nervous flyer, and so I had this combination of like, I'm going on this big trip. I'm kind of scared I'm never coming back, and it's like a pretty long flight. I had to fly through Hong Kong. So alcohol was really how I got myself through flying, and so I had a few drinks on the plane. And when I arrived in Brisbane, I had broken out in a rash, and so I needed to get it checked out. So I went to a doctor, and he didn't even care about the rash, but he noticed this super tiny mole on my leg. So that's important for later. So I arrived in Australia, and I actually lived with the couple that I was going to work for a couple of weeks, and they lived in the country. And I remember like the second day that I was there, I was like so jet lagged, covered in a rash. And the guy like came, I was at the computer, and he came and he started like rubbing my shoulders. It was like super creepy. And so I just found him like a little too friendly. And he took me out for lunch, and he was like, so when are you going to get your permanent residency? And I was like, kind of a deer in headlights. Like, I just got here. I don't want to stay here forever. I'm not really sure, but this is my boss. And so I was, kind of felt like I better not like fully announce to him right now that this is like a 1-year gig. So anyway, I had to endure a few kind of uncomfortable weeks living in their house. And then I found my own place, and I decided to live. So the clinic was in this little community called Cleveland, and it was gorgeous. It was on the ocean, and it was a retirement community. So I was one of the youngest people by far. And then it's in like a really weird small world thing. There were a number of Canadians there that were going to teachers college. So I ended up living with a girl that dated my brother, and her father was a family friend. And so, and then I connected with this guy that I'd met at Dalhousie. So, I ended up finding some people, but we didn't have a lot of friends because we were young and living in this retirement community, but it was like incredible experience, beautiful. So starting day one of work, the tables were too big for me. And so the guy that I was going to work for built me this little platform that I stood on, and he kind of shellacked it. So it was actually kind of slippery. And so I remember, my first day in practice, this guy, so, remembering that, like, I have no confidence. I have a full day. I'm with this creepy boss, and this big Australian guy sits down, and I wasn't confident in my adjusting skills, but I was very confident in my soft tissue work. I had strong thumbs. And at the time, I really leaned on that. And I felt like if I can make somebody cry, especially if it was a man, using my thumbs, like, then that was a win. And so, I had all kinds of comments about my size but the strength of my thumbs. And so I remember on that first day, these tables were kind of like these interesting tables that are great for somebody that's in really acute pain. And they have all these buttons and levers. And so I accidentally hit a button, and this guy's sitting on the table, and the whole table starts coming up like this. And the guy is like sliding down the table. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know what I touched. Like, let me figure this out. So it was a pretty overwhelming, fun, overwhelming experience. I spent many days in the tiny little washroom trying to catch a break, because like that first week I saw about 125 patients, and that's what I saw for 9 months. And so I used to like have to retreat. I was so sore, my body, I didn't realize how to take care of myself. I wasn't getting adjusted, which is kind of ironic, but so I couldn't really, like, you at the time, you couldn't really have a conversation with me without me like constantly like self-massaging myself, because my forearms were so sore and tight and my neck was, and so I'd like be talking to me and I'd be like this the whole time, trying to kind of do some self-therapy. But I used to go into the washroom to kind of like have a moment, and there was this sign this poster with these really cute dogs on it. It said, "Don't bite off more than you can chew." And like every day I was like, oh my God, I've bitten off way more than I can chew. Like, what am I gonna do? And so anyway, finally I actually decided to leave. So like after 9 months, I realized that it was a lot. There was great things about it, but there were some things about it that weren't great. So it was time for me to leave. So of course I couldn't go back to Pickering. So I went to Vancouver and ended up in an associateship position there with a chiropractor that really focused on the soft tissue stuff. And it was there that I came back to this mole. So it was like two years later, and I was sitting on a dock somewhere, and I looked at the mole, and for some reason, like I just got this anxious feeling, and I was like, I think I better have this checked out. So I ended up at a dermatologist. He told me that it was really nothing to worry about, but it should probably come off. And he's like, you know, if you hear from me, you know, that's not really a great thing, but like, I don't think you're going to hear from me. So I said, okay, great. So 2 weeks later, I'm at this practice in, it was actually in a suburb of Vancouver called Surrey, kind of a rough area. And I get the call, and he, you know, was very polite. And he said, you know, like, something came back with this mole. You really, you know, we've made you an appointment. And he was very casual about it all. He's like, we've made you an appointment with Dr. Money. And like, of course, I'm like, that's an interesting last name. It wasn't his last name. He was a plastic surgeon. So this was the guy trying to be funny. And he was, you know, just kind of trying to keep it light so that I guess I wasn't too scared. And, but, you know, he said, we caught it early, but it has to come off. We've made you an appointment with Dr. Money. Make sure you show up. And, you know, it's invasive malignant melanoma. It's kind of like what he said at the end, like, you know, as sort of the goodbye. And so, of course, I went home and looked it up and freaked myself out. And anyway, I showed up at Dr. Money's, and I thought that I would just, I thought it was just gonna be a quick thing. Like I thought I would just like drive myself there and drive home and be at work the next day. Because I guess I'll finish this story, but so that's not what happened. I had it removed, and I got 30 stitches, which I'd never had stitches before. So and they were like, there was like internal stitches and external stitches, and so it was kind of a big deal. And I went home and laid on the couch, and at the time I had like a super dud boyfriend, and like he came over with like a like frozen pizza and said hi, basically, and then left. And so I was by myself, and my family was all here. And so anyway, I laid on the couch for 4 days and just had this really interesting mix of feelings, because it was like, well, they caught it early, and it kind of felt like it wasn't like a real cancer, because they didn't have to have, you know, chemo and all the various, you know, kind of more serious treatments. But it was certainly scary. And I was in my 30s. And with melanoma, it's the kind of cancer that like it can come back and you may not even see it. And so that was in 2007. So that, you know, I've kind of lived with that in the back of my mind ever since. That, you know, I've had a number of moles removed since, because it's like as soon as something looks a little weird, you get fixated on it. And then it's like, oh, I just want it off. I just need that reassurance. So anyway, it was an interesting time. And so, you know, kind of the point I want to make about that is that I also at the time, like, I can't remember which happened first, but the effect of not really taking care of my body, you know, and at this point, I'm like 3 years into my practice, and my loan payments alone were a mortgage. Like I was paying $1,500 a month for my loans. And like I just had no clue about money and about business. And so like that whole year I was in Australia, I didn't even talk to the bank. I was like, I'm in Australia. And so then I came back and the bank was like, you're in trouble. Because, the expectation was like, you graduate and like you start paying this debt back right away. And like, but I'm not making any money. So anyway, I learned some lessons the hard way about how important it is to talk to the bank and how important it is to talk to CRA and how you can't just kind of hide yourself under a blanket and think that they'll go away. And at this point, though, I still hadn't learned about the importance of marketing. So here I am, like just kind of struggling to get by, trying to, working hard, feeling like I just wanted to show up and be a good chiropractor. I didn't want to have to like figure out the business piece, but life was kind of pushing me into that because they go hand in hand. And you can't have a successful business if you're not learning how to be a good business person. And then also starting to have some health things pop up. And so I was working my butt off, not taking great care of myself, making mistakes. And so I also got into back problems, ironically, and I got a disc herniation, which created a lot of pain. So in 2007, I decided to take a year off because it was just getting to be a lot. So I took a year off and got a job with the Fraser Health Authority, and I got a management position. And for that year, it was pretty uncomfortable because I felt like a total fraud because I hated the job. I wanted to be a chiropractor, but my body needed to heal and I needed a little bit of financial relief. And it was interesting because I tried to work from home because I hated the job so much. And so, it's been interesting watching COVID because I know what it's like to not like your job, and I know what it's like to work from home and not like your job. And so I constantly knew I wasn't showing up the way I should and the way I, needed to. And so I had this like really horrible mix of like guilt and like just angst that I was going to get found out because I was pooching the dog. So anyway, and then I met my husband. And so I met my husband while I was taking this year off, and he's a chiropractor. And he kind of brought me back to chiropractic and reignited the passion for chiropractic in me. And so when we got together, I quit the job and started working with him. And it wasn't easy either. But I feel like I'm watching the time, and I'm just gonna kind of wrap that up and sort of say that from that point on, we got married pretty quickly, got into kids pretty quickly. I took 2 18-month mat leaves. So when you're self-employed, there was no income from me, but absolutely the right thing to do for our kids. And kind of since then, I've been trying to kind of have like a full-time job, but also be a full-time mom. So it's been an interesting road of trying to balance the two. And so I've learned a lot. And so moving to Peterborough was really the first time that I actually started to realize that marketing is important. And so in coming to Peterborough, it's the first time that I've ever worked on marketing my business, because I learned over and over that like it's not enough to just show up and be good at it. People have to know you exist, and so I think the point I want to make is that everyone has their ups and downs in business, and I see on the daily people that come in and they prioritize the business as I have over the years at the expense of their health. And I can listen to people tell me how much they spend on social media every month, and then when it comes to taking care of themselves, they don't want to spend the money. And I've been there, and so I know from personal experience that it in the long run it actually works against the business. And so my passion now is to try to take what I've learned in my own life and apply it to the people I work with. And that's why I'm so passionate about the lifestyle piece, because I know that I did get a lot of sun as a kid and I got burns. but it's not just about that. Cancer is not there's a lifestyle component for sure. And so that really began my journey into just working with the mind body. And so that's where I am today with the practice, is that I have a very unique approach. And if we have a second, then I'd love to show you what it looks like to be adjusted in my practice. And I had mentioned in the interview that I was going to talk about technology. I think maybe I'm running out of time because I'd love to answer questions if anyone has them. But I do want to say, and this is kind of old school. So we have this technology that we use in the practice called heart rate variability. And this is a picture of somebody's scan that I took this week. And what I really love about it is there's this blue line here that you see that's really up and down. And what's super cool about this technology is that blue line is every time that person had a stressful thought, their hand was sweating in the machine that's measuring this. And so we can really see how, and most people sitting there think they're not stressed. And so it's an unconscious process. So we can really see how a thought creates a stress response, which is a physiological response in the body out of your control. And that is impacting your health on the daily. And it gives us these numbers that tell us about how well your body's coping. And it really kind of gives us a glimpse into how long your body's been in a stress response. And so, you know, my story sort of indicates that the stress response is kind of from the beginning of life throughout, and there's going to be these things, and your body's like always trying to adapt to them. And chiropractic, the reason we measure this is chiropractic really helps improve your body's ability to adapt to that stress, to the stressors in your life. And in my practice, we really talk about those stressors because the chiropractic adjustment helps you adapt. But if you're not actually working on those stressors and making it a priority, then, you know, there's only so much we can do from a chiropractic perspective or from other wellness perspectives. And so this is a huge part of my practice. And we've been doing this testing for 10 years. And what's really cool is now it's really in the mainstream because there's technology, and I'm wearing this ring called the Aura Ring, and the new Apple Watch are measuring it, and they measure heart rate variability. So it's really becoming a talked about, more mainstream thing, and chiropractors have been doing it for a long time. And so, you know, we've always been, even though we get a very bad rap, we've always been a little cutting edge that way, but we're fringe. But now the fringe is not so fringe anymore. I'm sure we'll find new ways to be fringe, but anyway, so I don't know if all of that came together with any kind of coherence. I feel like I was like rambling, but
it totally did.
That's my story. And I'd love to show you how I adjust because it's super different. And so here's a video of me adjusting a patient, and the technique that I use is called torque release, TRT. So it's very gentle, and it's all about trying to create ease in the body so that the spine can move, versus other more manual techniques where it's about moving bones to get the spine moving. So it's a different approach. Here it is.
Sorry, just one sec. Why is that not? There we go.
So with this technique, it's very reliant on a foot check. So the foot check is really important, and it's important that it's done very well. So we have our patients put on shoes, and then it's an analysis. And what we're looking for is what we call the primary. So we're looking for the one area that when you adjust that area, the rest of the spine unwinds. And every time you come in, the primary will be different. So we're not doing the same adjustment over and over again. And with this particular patient, I was checking a few times just to be sure, because it's really easy to adjust what we call secondaries. So you got to be really present. I try hard not to talk, although it's hard with some people. Easy to get chatty. And so just double checking there. And then I use an instrument which can be dialed down in intensity. So this patient's having her femur adjusted, which is actually a pelvic adjustment. And so I find the spot, and then I like to really just be present with it and watch for some changes in the breathing. And what's happening with the adjustment is the body's going into what we call the parasympathetic. So it's going into the relaxation response. So I'm checking her breath just to make sure I'm in the right place. And then I give her the adjustment. And then I like to let the patient lie there with their breath, and I can see how crooked I am. So I got to talk to my chiropractor about that as I stand there. And so with this style of adjusting, we adjust anywhere from 1 to 3 adjustments. So it's very different.
It is very different. And the response is interesting. You can see her relax after that last one. Right before you lifted her legs up, you see even her shoulders relaxed into the table.
Yeah.
Really interesting. I'll open the floor to questions. Let me unpin you from the screen so that way we're all together again. There we go. Perfect. Excellent. If you have a question, go ahead, unmute yourself, raise your hand, bop in. We've had, there's been quite a few comments in the comment section there. One of the questions I have now, Ange, is, do you know, are business courses now offered in chiropractic school?
I don't know. That's a great question, actually. It does seem like, some of these younger chiropractors are coming out with like such social media prowess. I'm like, and it's so funny to be like middle-aged and, I'm looking at some of the younger chiropractors in the community and I'm like, I feel so old. And yet I still feel so young. Yeah, they're nailing it in terms of social media.
Excellent. And you're well on your way too, Ange. Don't sell yourself short. I see you out there. Follow the Wellman Clinic, Instagram. She's been doing a lot of stretching videos lately as well. If you struggle, definitely check it out. I'm a big believer in chiropractic therapy, and find what works for you. Dr. Ange, I'm grateful for your time today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
If you have a question for Dr. Ange, please feel free, reach out to her. If you want a warm connection, reach out to me. I can email you together and get it in there. We did record today's session as well, so we'll put that out on social media if there is anything you wanted to recap. Your story is really interesting, Ange, and there are kind of certain points during your story I just felt like really seen, like especially with the imposter syndrome, and there's kind of a few other things along the way. So thank you so much for being open and sharing a bit about you and telling your story. So it's really nice to see. That being said, my friends, I will burn through the chamber news and get you out of here right on time. So a few things coming down the pipeline. Next week is speaker series. We're connecting with Kellen Sewell of RPM3 Solutions. He built his LinkedIn followers to 10,000. So he's going to be talking about some strategies that he used on LinkedIn that he found particularly helpful. So check it out, speaker series next week, 12 o'clock on Wednesday. Chamber members, of course, tag your chamber on social media channels. We love to share your content and support what you've got going on. And of course, if you have something for our newsletter, you can always email it to us. We love to plug it into there as well. It's bi-weekly. The next newsletter goes out next Monday. Your COVID-19 resource portal, of course, all the policy work that Joel has been working on, everything we've got coming down the pipeline, you can access at peterboroughchamber.ca on the COVID-19 resource portal. We have sponsorship of opportunities available for our LeaderCast event coming up in a couple months. We also have opportunity with ChamberAM and PBX. If you are looking for opportunities or you know somebody that's looking for a unique marketing opportunity, reach out to us. Of course, as a not-for-profit, it helps us out kind of 2 ways. And the senior showcase. As Anne Driscoll mentioned earlier, we launched the virtual senior showcase on peterboroughchamber.ca. Just click senior showcase. On there, we partnered with Age Friendly Peterborough. We've got exhibitors, workshops, a panel discussion, not-for-profit organizations and agencies are highlighted, all housed on a dedicated page for the entire month. So it's accessible until June 30th. If you know someone that should be an exhibitor, maybe you want to get in yourself, there's still lots of time and we're promoting it throughout the month. So just reach out to me. We can make it happen. And Business Excellence Awards. Nomination deadline is June 23rd. So you've got a couple weeks. Nominate your business, nominate Dr. Ange Wellman's business, nominate Microwage, a Business Citizen of the Year, Peterborough County. This year, more than ever, we're going to rally. We're going to rally hard behind our businesses. Please do go out, nominate excellencepeterborough.ca. That being said, it is 8:58. It was so nice to see all of you today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Ange. Have a great day, everyone. Get your coffees. I was going to say nail this Monday, but it's definitely not Monday.